No, the problem is some sections of it are very vague. They don't like expressly say what constitutes a misleading thing, what constitutes false information. It's suppressing their freedom of expression because, with the vagueness, you don't know if you received information from me and then it's not verifiable. There are people who've been giving us classified information on X or on whatever platform. It becomes hard to really do the checks on the government because you can't criticize so much or so little because you don't know at what point will they say that hapa, like you've crossed the line here.
Mpenzi mtazamaji, karibu kwenye awamu nyingine ya Vizroom ndani ya Sauti TV ukiwa nami Rehab Mora. Leo hii studioni tunaye mkurugenzi mtendaji wa Ustawi Kenya, si mwingine bali Leocadia. Welcome Leocadia. Labda you can tell us what is Ustawi Kenya and what in particular you do at Ustawi Kenya.
What we've been doing since we started, actually Ustawi started in 2023 when we were having the 2023 finance bill. And then during this finance bill, the most pertinent issue was the housing levy. So Ustawi held one of the most successful X spaces that brought in the PS for housing, and the president was also on board. And we ran a space for 3 days straight, like from 8 to I guess 2 a.m. for 3 days, to just ensure that people really understand, and now they are asking questions to the right people. And part of the things we discussed during the space were added into the housing levy, whatever. So we've constantly been doing civic education in the grassroots mostly, and peer in towns. Yeah.
Leocadia, we've seen on October 15th, we saw the president of Kenya, that is William Ruto, sign some bills into law, and some were a bit controversial, some were just a bit okay, and I'm sure you've had a look at them. Can we just have a mention of those bills?
First, we have the National Land Commission Amendment Bill, the Land Law, I guess the Land Act Amendment Bill, the Privatization Bill, the National Police Commission Bill, the Virtual Assets Service Providers Bill, Wildlife Conservation and Management Bill, and the Cyber Crimes and Cyber Security Bill.
Yes, speaking of the Cyber Crime Security Bill, in the past few days, we've seen netizens online, and even they've been speaking a lot about this cyber crime bill. It has been so controversial, and many people would want to know, what is this bill? What is it about? What is it speaking? And what are the misinformations ambazo zimekuwa kwa hii bill? Maybe you can tell us.
The Computer Misuse and Cyber Crimes Act is an act that, Amendment Act is an act that is updating the Computer Misuse and Cybercrime Act that we've been using. So it wants to reflect the current realities that are happening, well, of course, in Kenya and globally, because now we have AI, we have deep fakes, we have a lot of misinformation and disinformation. So the act basically wants to ensure that all this is covered, because you see, there's no crime without law. So if there's no law that says that impersonation is a crime, then impersonating someone will not be a crime. So to ensure that these new cyber crimes are well included in the act, so that we can have punishment and whatever for offenders. Yeah, so that is basically what it's meant to do. Now, the problem is some sections of it are very vague. They don't like expressly say what constitutes a misleading thing, what constitutes false information, or what constitutes disinformation or whatever. And those are some of the problems that are emanating from the bill, because now people feel like the fact that it's vague, it gives room for subjective interpretation, and laws should not be like that, because now the moment laws should be objective, the moment it gives subjective, it means that your interpretation might be right, my interpretation might be right. So what people have an issue with is now that lack of clarity. And then there's also a section on fines that they feel it's punitive. The 20 million, okay, up to 20 million fine
and 10 years imprisonment.
Or 10 years imprisonment, or both. They feel like it's so punitive. And the fact that it's not clear, so you might find yourself having those fines or that serving that prison term.
Sentence, yeah. So with this Computer Misuse and Cybercrime Act, is there a particular group of people that was being targeted? Because we've seen the Gen Z coming up in relation to the protest we have in last year. Most of these, the organization ilikuwa inafanywa pale Twitter, inafanywa kwa WhatsApp groups and everything. So what does this mean to them? Are they kind of suppressed in a way? Ama, what is the president trying to relay?
I think it's suppressing their freedom of expression, because with the vagueness, you don't know if you received information from me and then it's not verifiable. There are people who've been giving us classified information on X or on whatever platform. Now it becomes hard to really do the checks on the government, because you can't criticize so much or so little, because you don't know at what point will they say that Hapa, like you've crossed the line here.
And I would also like to speak from a media perspective, because you've seen, as journalists, most have been trained to to be true, to be factual, and to speak what it is, like what is real. It is, yeah. So with this particular bill, with this particular act that is now like a law, what does this mean to the media as well? Because media huwa hawafichi ukweli na siku zote unasemwa. What from a lawyer perspective, from someone who works at Ustawi and mambo ya democracy, what does this also mean to them?
Well, the good thing is with the petition by Ruben and the Kenya Human Rights Commission, the court yesterday stopped implementation of some sections, especially those that curb the media freedom and the freedom of expression.
Yes.
So that gives us time to hope that such sections will be repealed or something.
We can venture into the other bills that were mentioned actually in that particular signing that was done last week, October 15th. Let us have a look at the Land Act. Maybe can you briefly tell us what is entailed there, what has been there, what is going to be different, and how is it going to affect landowners and even the squatters as well?
With the new Land Act, there's a mandatory gazettement of public land, and then there's digitization of land transactions. So that's an advantage, because now everything that happens, especially with public land, we see so that there's no
land grabbing.
Yeah, land grabbing. Yeah, so it reduces the land grabbing, and then the digitization reduces the the way people have been conned. So you find people selling to you land that they don't have title to, and such things. So it's a good law because now it makes the processes transparent, but at the same time it breaches the privacy at some point. Yeah.
We've also seen the Wildlife Act that was, brought into law right now, and I think in the recent month there was a public participation on increasing the charges, the fees, just to give benefit to to the people, the tourists and everything. We've also seen that in the same act there was this section that was saying that people who've been affected by the human wildlife conflict, so if either it has been an injury, it's been death, it's been destruction of property, that they will be able to receive compensation. But when we look at this particular bill, the question one will ask himself is it acting right now, or what happens if I was affected in the previous years with the wildlife that are being spoken in?
Well, with the Wildlife Conservation and Management Act that has been assented, everyone that has been harmed or died from wildlife conflicts and or their crops were destroyed, there will be compensation. I believe that now the operation of the law will be from the time of assent going forward. Yeah.
There was a case of a student in MMU who was harmed by a wildlife animal, and when the management from both KWS, the police walipokuja pale walisema that compensation amewekwa kwa list ya compensation na haijulikani hizi pesa zitakuwa released when. By the way, who releases actually these compensation fees? Is it the government, or is it the KWS, or is it the Ministry of Wildlife? Who releases this kind of funds?
I think every ministry and every parastatal has a budget. So the compensation funds usually come from the budgets of the respective organizations.
There is also the Air Passenger Service Charge Amendment Act, which revises, the Air Passenger Service Charge Act, and it redirect proceeds from the Tourism Promotion Fund to the Tourism Fund. That is, people who will be coming into the country, so there is an amount that they will be paying. A few will be going to the air travel, a few will be going to the Ministry of Tourism. What does this signify to both the tourism sector and also towards the the air transport?
Well, of course, this will mean that air transport will increase. And it's a good thing because it creates revenue, it raises revenue for the government. And the disadvantage is that it might scare away some tourists from coming.
We also have the Virtual Asset Service Providers Act 2025. What actually is, Virtual Asset Service Provider? Someone will be asking, what is this?
Virtual Asset Service Providers are things like cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, where you have assets, but they are virtual, like it's not tangible.
Okay.
Yeah. So the law seeks to regulate that sector, because you see, for the longest time, it wasn't regulated. Like, people had Bitcoins and all this, and most of the companies were not even in Kenya. So right now the law requires them to have physical presence in Kenya, and then fully registered in Kenya, have bank accounts in Kenya, and then they'll be regulated by both the Central Bank of Kenya and the Capital Markets Authority.
I think that will be most likely quite an interesting thing, because many people have been have ventured into this business of the virtual Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. I think this will kind of benefit them in case something doesn't go well with you. You have a physical place to go and rant out, and even with the help of the legal system, I believe that most likely this could be a good act from my point. We also have the Privatization Act 2025, which here says that it creates a legal framework to govern the disposal of state-owned enterprises.
Mm-hmm.
So what is this Privatization Act?
Privatization basically is making something that was initially public to private. Say, for example, we have this public land here, and then the land is sold off to a private person, maybe to do development projects and all that. Yeah. Or maybe if we have parastatals that have been making losses, they can now be made private, maybe sold to a private investor.
We've seen various private agencies that have been made public, and people are raising questions as to why should a private company, someone we've seen actually with the rising economy, most companies have been going bankrupt, most companies have been closing, and therefore this act, does it mean that the government will come and pick these and continue with the business, or start other kind of businesses?
With privatization, say for example, if Mumias Sugar is a public company and then it's going through financial turmoil, and then it's given to it's sold off to a private investor who will now ensure that things are running and all that. This law is a disadvantage and an advantage. It's a disadvantage because we will get to a point where now the government just sets off public property without maybe following due regard, even if it's not undergoing through losses and all that. Because we've seen cases of privatization of KICC, the Kenya Pipeline,
Adana
and others. Yeah, so it's bad in that regard, but at times privatization is good because now the investors come with enough capital to ensure that things are running. And you see, if Mumias is closed and now a private person opens it, it means that it creates more job opportunities for the citizens. Yeah, so it's both good and bad.
Maybe Leocadia, could you tell us that from a civil society perspective, we've seen various people coming out, to address of how controversial some of these bills are. We've seen former CJ Maraga, we've seen Okiya Omtatah even sending a petition, we've seen the Reuben Kigame was a presidential aspirant in 2022 and is also seeking to vie in 2027. They have raised concerns about how controversial, these bills are. So what role can the civil society, play to engage with these kind of laws now that they are enacted?
Let me introduce the aspect of public participation. So Article 10 of our Constitution provides for public participation as a national value and a principle of governance. And then we have Article 118 of the Constitution that requires Parliament to involve the people in every process, whether it's legislation or any other business of the committees. And most of the times during the first reading, when the bill is at the committee stage, we have calls for public participation where they can either ask for memoranda from the people or oral submission or written submissions, and at times it's physical presentations from the public on every bill. Now the problem is with public participation, what I've seen at times they do is bundling counties. So you find that we have public participation for a specific bill, and then they are putting 3 counties together, and counties are
very wide.
They are very wide. So for example, if we are doing Kiambu, Nairobi and Kajiado together, Kajiado is so big, like it goes up to Namanga and wherever. And then Kiambu is also one big county. So how will someone come all the way from Namanga to KCC for the public participation? So it would be easier if public participation is made closer to the people, then the people will go
Take part as well.
and take part in the public participation. And then the other problem is at times the time given for public participation is very limited. Because if you want me to come up with written submissions or memoranda and then you're giving me 3 days, that's not enough time for me to go through the draft bill. And then of course, most of the submissions are usually done by a team. At times they're individual, but mostly they're done by teams, right? So by the time we are getting the draft, sitting together and highlighting the issues with the draft, it takes time. So 3 days is very limited time. And then the biggest problem with public participation is the fact that most of the times the outcome of the public participation is not included in the bills. So you find that you've gone for public participation, you've spent their whole day discussing issues, raising issues with the draft, and then the draft just proceeds as it was, and then it gets assented. And such are the problems with maybe this Cybersecurity Act, because I'm sure people did the public participation and maybe they highlighted the issues that are highlighted in the petition that has been brought forth. So the fact that most of the times they don't consider what is the outcome of the public participation, it brings issues even afterwards. So with people going to court, it's also a way of public participation, like holding the government, the parliament or whoever into account. Like, yes, we discussed this, we highlighted that this has a problem, and then when the bill is final and it has been assented, now it's an act, whatever issues we raised are still there. That becomes a problem, and now we have these legal issues coming up.
What maybe can citizens, do better in order to ensure that once such kind of bills, are being brought forward, they're aware, they're able to know, they're able to, take part in what can the citizens do actually?
The most important thing that citizens can do is be on the lookout, because when we have bills, the invitations to public participation will either be in the national newspapers or in the parliament websites or pages. And then we also have some civil society groups like Mzalendo that posts every bill that requires public participation. Mzalendo will always post and remind people even with the deadlines. So as citizens, when we are called for public participation, let's go and air our views. And then I think before the bill is going to the final stage of assent, the committee really owes us coming back to us and telling us, now this is a revised draft. Like, this was the original draft, and then after the public participation, this is what we added and all that, so that we are sure that whatever is being assented, it includes our views in it. Yeah, so we have to be on the lookout, and we have to be really active in governance, because with every right comes a responsibility. You see, like right now we're talking about our freedoms of expression being suppressed. That's our right, right? So it's our responsibility as citizens to ensure by the time, like, we are we don't get to a point where it's being suppressed. Like, if we exercise our responsibility from the word go, it's easier for it not to get up there. Like, it would be easy for those sections that are punitive to be removed. after the public participation. So we need to be active citizens.
Thank you so much, Leocadia, for breaking down these bills, these 8 bills that have been passed into laws right now in our government. And I'm sure that our viewers have been have learned one or two about these bills, and they will be on the lookout for such kind of processes that do require their attention. Naam, mtazamaji, na huo ndio mwisho wa mazungumzo yetu ya leo, mazungumzo ambayo tumekuwa nayo kuhusu miswada ambayo iliweza kuwa law, ambayo Rais William Ruto aliweza kutia sahini mnamo wiki iliyopita. Na kutoka kwa meza yetu ya sauti ni hayo tu kwa sasa, hadi wakati mwingine. Nimekuwa wako Rehab Mora. Kwaheri.